Video games have long been established as an art form, as demonstrated by countless games in so many different ways. Some games tell deeply personal stories, putting you in the shoes of its characters and letting you see through their eyes. Some games dispense with traditional storytelling and set you free in deep, immersive worlds with tragic, unknowable pasts. Some games experiment with music and rhythm, some games challenge the concept of gaming itself, and some games just look really, really nice. The possibilities are endless, and however a game chooses to express itself, there's no denying that video games can be just as legitimate a piece of art as any painting, film, or novel. But this wasn't always the case, and there was a time when video games at large were considered little more than toys for children.
The fun is back! Oh yes, siree! It's the 2600 from Atari. It's the video system with classics galore, from Space Invaders to cars that roar.
This has never been a fair assessment of the medium, even in its infancy, but it's easy to see how someone might have dismissed the likes of Pac-Man or Space Invaders as puerile entertainment. But it wouldn't take long for games to prove their artistic potential, and one of the strongest demonstrations of this would come from an unlikely source. Donkey Kong debuted as the titular villain from Mario's First Adventure, a 1981 arcade cabinet, but it wouldn't take long for him to be supplanted by bigger, badder baddies. In the time that followed, he was relegated to a couple of unsuccessful sequels and side games, and would slowly fade into the background of the larger Super Mario franchise. He didn't even get a spot in the first Mario Kart, instead represented by his son, Donkey Kong Jr. Or is it his grandson? No, wait, I think this is a younger version of himself. Whatever, the Kong family tree is nebulous at best. It would put the Targaryens to shame, and I'm not going to get into it.
That's fair.
The point is, while he was still a staple Nintendo character, he was hardly relevant, and went over a decade without getting another game of his own. Then, in 1994, 13 years after the original arcade game, all that changed. Donkey Kong Country was revolutionary in a number of ways, and it took the eponymous ape from a relic of the arcade era to being on the cutting edge of innovation and artistic expression in video games. The game remains legendary to this day, giving birth to one of the greatest platforming franchises of all time, and making Donkey Kong an instantly recognizable icon, right alongside other Nintendo greats. In this video, I want to talk about all the things that make it great, from the gameplay to the art. Be sure to like and subscribe, and channel memberships are available if you want to further support the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into one of my favorite games ever, and one that raised the bar for video games across the board. Donkey Kong Country's opening is a testament to the pride the developers at Rareware had in what they accomplished with this game. Their logo appears with a fancy animation and a triumphant fanfare, then we're treated to a short cutscene that calls back to the original arcade game and shows off what a huge step forward this game represents. It shows an aged, bearded Kong cranking a phonograph to the tune of the original arcade theme. This is Cranky Kong, who is actually the original Donkey Kong that faced off against Mario in the arcade, as hinted by the fact that he's hanging out on the girders from that game. His reminiscence is quickly interrupted though, as a boombox falls from the sky, accompanied by a younger Kong who knocks him from his perch. This younger Donkey Kong is the one you'll be playing as, and he's either Cranky's grandson or nephew. The games kinda go back and forth on this point. An upbeat and high-tech remix of the arcade theme plays as a fancy background fades in, and Donkey Kong dances in the treetops. This cutscene is awesome, and it establishes so much about the game right away. That cheeky attitude Rareware would come to be known for is on full display here. They're basically saying, this isn't your daddy's Donkey Kong. It also introduces the visual style the game employs, which gives the game much of its identity. Nintendo wanted this game to directly compete with the Sega Genesis, which outclassed the Super Nintendo in terms of graphic and audio. And without getting ahead of myself, I can confidently say that Rareware blew Sega out of the water with this one. I've covered the classic Sonic games on this channel, and I praised their visuals, which themselves were innovative and ahead of the curve, but Donkey Kong Country is on another level. These characters are 3D renders converted into two-dimensional sprites, which was practically unheard of at the time and allowed for unprecedented levels of visual detail and extremely smooth and dynamic animations. But it isn't just technologically impressive. It gives the game such a unique and memorable style that looks good to this day. There just isn't anything else that looks quite like this. It's realistic, but also striking and stylish in a way that makes it completely timeless. We'll talk more about the visuals overall as we go, but it's one of the things that sticks out right away, so I wanted to go ahead and address it. But there's something else that stands out immediately upon launching the game: the music. David Wise's soundtrack is nothing short of genius and legendary, a transcendental masterpiece. I mean, it's beyond words. It's Donkey Kong Country's crowning achievement, in my opinion, and I could and very well might spend the entire video gushing over it. The story goes that Chris and Tim Stamper, Rareware's founders, just happened to meet David Wise in a music shop, where he was demonstrating the capabilities of a music computer using his own compositions. They apparently offered him a job on the spot, and it's not hard to see why. This is one of those situations where the stars align and Odin descends to bless humanity in his infinite wisdom. Jesus died on the cross for our sins, and also so that David Wise could write music for a monkey wearing a tie. It's in the Bible, I promise.
Okay.
Wise wanted to create a soundtrack that matched the high standard set by the visuals, and he surpassed that goal by miles. He worked tirelessly around the hardware limitations of the Super Nintendo to extract every drop of sauce the console had to offer. I'm neither a music theorist or a computer scientist, so there's no way I can do justice to his accomplishments, but what I do know is that the Super Nintendo just isn't supposed to make these noises. It's not only the best sounding game on the system by a parsec or two, but I'm comfortable saying that it was the most technically impressive soundtrack in history up to that point, perhaps even to this day. But that's only half the picture, as the music gives the game a striking identity and a deep atmosphere. Every track is perfectly tailored to each beautiful level in this game, using a combination of ambient sounds, percussion, and crystal clear samples to create immersive and appealing atmospheres. From the jungle rhythm of DK Island Swing, to the haunting beauty of aquatic ambience, to the romping fun of Bonus Room Blitz. Every song provides an amazing listening experience and also a fantastic accompaniment to the gameplay itself. David Wise is a modern Mozart if there ever was one. He's my favorite video game composer of all time. Actually, I take that back. He's my favorite composer of all time. And yeah, I know that's a strong statement. Don't tell my other favorites. But as awesome as he is, he doesn't get all the credit for Donkey Kong Country's soundtrack. He was joined by Evelyn Novakovic, known as Evelyn Fisher at the time. She contributed 7 tracks, including Forest Frenzy and Ice Cave Chant, which are some of my favorite songs in the whole game. Her style ranges from pensive and moody to fun and chaotic, and adds even more variety to the soundtrack as a whole. She's also responsible for Simian Segway, the map theme, which is totally synonymous with the game itself and completely iconic. I feel that she often gets overshadowed by David Wise, and I want to make sure she gets the credit she deserves. Together, they created a timeless and memorable soundtrack that remains a huge part of Donkey Kong's legacy, and it's one of the greats to this day. Alright, so I'm on page 3 of this script, and I still haven't said a word about actually playing this game, and there's a reason for that. In my opinion, Donkey Kong Country's gameplay isn't all that remarkable. That's why I started this video talking about art, and spent this whole time harping on the visuals and music, because I think those things are what really make this game special. But that in no way means the gameplay is bad, and in fact, I think the simpler approach this game takes is perfect. To demonstrate this, let's take a look at the first level. The game starts on the game map, which features pre-rendered backgrounds depicting the natural splendor of DK Island. This is a great approach, letting each level stand on its own while giving you a nice sense of progression as you travel through DK Island on your way to the top. The first level begins with Donkey Kong jumping out of his treehouse and going to check on his banana hoard, only to find it completely empty. I don't know if the developers intended for this to be as funny as it is, or if I'm just easily entertained, but it makes me laugh every time. The way he runs in all excited as the bonus music begins to play, only to stop dead in his tracks, devastated by the loss of his prized bananas, while Diddy Kong stares in mute shock and horror. The bananas have been stolen by the evil pirate, King K. Rool, and his Kremling minions, and the goal of this game is to reclaim them and kick the pirates off the island. There's actually a quite detailed and humorous synopsis of this in the game manual, and it's got a lot of personality. But on to the gameplay. Donkey Kong can run and jump and perform a dive roll. Similarly to many platformers, most enemies are defeated by jumping on their heads, but you can also handle them with a roll. DK can also do his iconic ground pound, but I don't think there's much you can do with it. You can rescue Diddy Kong from various barrels throughout the level, and this functions as your health system. If you have Diddy with you, taking a hit will cause him to scamper off, while taking a hit without him will cause you to lose a life. But Diddy is more than an extra hit point. You can switch between them at will, and while Diddy Kong controls identically to Donkey Kong, there are some significant differences. He's faster and smaller, making navigation a bit easier, but he's too light to take out some of the tougher enemies. And that's it as far as core mechanics goes. Like I said, it's quite simple. Where things get interesting is in the level design itself, and the way Donkey and Diddy can interact with it. You can pick up and throw barrels, climb and swing on vines, bounce on tires, and of course, launch yourself out of barrels. This approach keeps the focus on the levels themselves, which, like I said, are absolutely beautiful. They have deep and detailed backgrounds, and even the level geometry feels right at home in these landscapes. The music, visuals, and interactivity come together to make you feel like you're really traveling through the jungles, caves, and forests of DK Island, and this immersion is a monumental accomplishment for a game this old. And I keep using words like immersion and experience, but this game is also just fun. Jumping through the trees, bouncing off enemies, and flying through barrel courses all feels great. The controls are tight and responsive, and nailing some precise platforming or threading the needle between enemies is always satisfying. Certain levels have animal friends you can ride, including Rambi the rhinoceros, Espresso the ostrich, Winky the frog, and On Guard the swordfish. They add some variety to the game, and give you alternate methods of clearing levels and finding secrets. This isn't the only way Donkey Kong mixes it up, though. Some levels have entirely unique mechanics, like the infamous minecart levels. These are intense gauntlets where you have to pilot a minecart through a broken down mine shaft, avoiding obstacles, bottomless pits, and enemies. I could not beat this when I was a kid. I had to get my mom to do it. She's a Donkey Kong master, by the way. Shout out to her. Going back to it was still hard. You gotta be precise with those jumps. Another level I really like is Stop and Go Station, which features unkillable enemies that are extremely fast and extremely scary. You have to hit these barrels that stop them for a moment, giving you a chance to get past. Each barrel gives you just enough time to get through the next section, and it can really get your heart rate going. Then there are the bosses, none of which are really that hard, but I'm a big fan of bosses, and I like the spectacle and finality they give each section of DK Island. Most of them are bigger, badder versions of enemies you've already encountered, like bees and vultures. The vulture's name is Neki, by the way. I just figured you would want to know that. Another great thing about Donkey Kong Country's levels is their explorability. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm using it. There are lots of secrets to be found, from hidden barrels to hidden passages. There are different ways to find these, but one of my favorites is to have Diddy hold a barrel. He carries it in front of him, unlike Donkey Kong, so you can check walls for secret passages by just bumping into them, meaning you don't have to throw the barrel to check. These secret rooms contain anything from extra lives to bananas to animal tokens. Collecting 3 identical animal tokens will allow you to travel to a bonus stage with hundreds of tokens. You have to collect as many as you can within the time limit, and you get an extra life for every 100 you get. This is so satisfying, until you just need to get a few more. Oh god, time's up.
I have to go back. Stay right here. No, you don't understand. Let me go back.
Each level also has 4 letter tokens spelling Kong, and collecting them all awards a bonus life. These are great rewards for exploration. There's no pressure of completion, just fun little bonuses to enjoy. There are options for multiplayer too. You can either take turns trying levels and competing to beat the most, or for a more chaotic experience, you can pass control back and forth between each other throughout a level. Overall, the gameplay is fun, surprisingly diverse, and extremely creative. Each level introduces new concepts and gimmicks to provide new challenges. Some are better than others, and there are a few levels I had a really bad time with, but even on the worst levels, you can always count on the stellar presentation to make it enjoyable. Donkey Kong Country's levels look, sound, and feel incredible to play. I've talked about all of this already, but I want to stress what a complete package they are. The first level starts at Donkey Kong's treehouse, and you can even go inside to check it out. Then it's out into the jungle, with the sound of insects, birds, and drums in the background. The music builds and evolves as you make your way through the level, which is a testament to David Wise's talent and intuition. The music isn't mechanically tied to gameplay or progression, it's just composed to perfectly accent your journey through the jungle. Towards the end of the level, the sunlight fades as dusk approaches, leading directly into the next level, which takes place on a rainy night with flashes of lightning and rumbling thunder. Next comes a dimly lit cave, and the music has this echoing reverb on it that really sells the idea of a vast hollow cavern. Wise does such amazing work with ambience, and his music really draws you into these levels. Then it's on to the first underwater level. These are less fun as far as gameplay goes, but it's impossible not to get lost in the endless blue background as the music transports you to another dimension. Each level takes you to an entirely new setting, with its own unique experience to offer, and this continues throughout the entire game. One thing I really like about these levels is that they remain grounded, as in these are all locations that could plausibly be located on a jungle island. Some are a bit more abstract than others, but they all fit into a unified theme, while still being incredibly diverse and interesting. After you beat each level, you're sent back to the game map with that incredible theme that kind of ties it all together. There are side characters to meet along the way, each with their own personality and musical theme. Cranky Kong will offer criticism and advice in equal measures as he beats you from the comfort of his rocking chair. Candy Kong is Donkey Kong's girlfriend, and she gives you the chance to save your game and steal a quick kiss. Funky Kong will transport you around the island in his jet barrel, and he'll also steal your girlfriend while he's at it. Fun fact, Funky's Fugue is the only song in the game not written by Wise or Novakovich. It was originally composed for Killer Instinct by Robin Beanland, but it was repurposed for Donkey Kong Country, and it's honestly one of my favorites. All of these characters are animated beautifully, in a way that was astonishing for the time and remains timeless and charming today. The longer this video goes, the more I'm going to keep saying the same things over and over again, so I'll sum it up here before moving on to the final boss. Donkey Kong Country is one of the best looking, best sounding, best feeling games ever made. King K. Rool stands out from other bosses in this game by being actually kind of tough. Once you get it down, it isn't that hard, but that's not as simple as it sounds. He starts by running back and forth across the boat, and you have to damage him by jumping on his head when he throws his crown at you. After a few rounds of this, cannonballs start raining down, and the timing to dodge these is kind of tricky. Once you damage him enough here, you've won and the credits play. But wait a minute, these credits don't seem right. Turns out this is a fake out, and the Croc King starts jumping wildly across the boat. Jumping on his head a few more times will finish the job for real, and the actual credits play. This is a great final boss, and it carries the strengths of the rest of the game with it. The song is incredible, the pirate ship makes a great setting for a final showdown, and I really like the background with DK Island in the distance. It's a fantastic send-off for a fantastic game. You can keep playing the game after this, finding any hidden bonuses you missed, and if you revisit the Banana Horde, you'll find it full of bananas, which is quite satisfying. What else can I say about Donkey Kong Country? It speaks for itself, really, and if you somehow have never played it, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's a masterpiece and a beacon of creative genius. Everyone involved with it deserves a ton of praise, from the developers to the designers to the musicians. It put Donkey Kong on the map and made him the Castellan of one of the most iconic and impressive platforming franchises of all time. Is it sacrilege to say this is better than Mario? It's hard to compare this to anything else. It's so much its own thing, and that's one of the many things that I respect so much about it. Hopefully this video has either inspired you to play it yourself, or gave you a chance to re-experience it if you played it before. Either way, thank you so much for watching. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Is this game as magical for you as it is for me? Do you still listen to this music 30 years later? Do you go out in public wearing nothing but a tie to cosplay as Donkey Kong? No, me neither. Anyway, I hope you're doing well, and I hope to see you in the next video. Remember to like and subscribe, and until next time, take care.